Okay.
Can't be heard. And now I should be able to be heard on the stream. And we should be live.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
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 There's a little bit of a delay, I think. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
There'll be a slight delay between seeing stuff in chat.
And
there we go. It looks like it's working.
Yeah. And cue the sad Joey comments. Yep, there it is. Did not take long.
Do you guys have, is the chat separate in Twitch? You're looking at that one too?
Yeah, looking at the Twitch chat and then the link that we're sharing for the questions as well.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
As
do you
well
have that?
as all your beautiful faces.
Do you have the question link there, Joey? I'm going to post it in the Zoom chat again.
Yeah, the Q&A for sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to also have the
We have all the channels.
Twitch chat behind it. How's everybody doing? We got everyone here.
It's going
Everyone in
well,
the chat.
man.
There we go.
People are actually watching and listening and interacting with the presenters. It's like a real virtual conference and everything.
It's almost like we know what we're doing.
Yeah, it's almost like three random PowerShell dudes pulled something off, eh? Like that was pretty cool how it all came together. I think we lucked out.
Pulled it off because we're sort of still pulling it off.
We've definitely had some wrenches thrown at us along the way, so we've managed to do okay with that so far.
Seems to be going well.
Hey, and now
No
sad
complaints
Joey
over
is
here.
glad Joey. He's got the bright. You got the light on. What do you have? A ring light there? Huh? Do you have one of those?
This is a special custom lighting setup. It's called a lamp without a lampshade.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I think that's the first question we need to answer on the stream: is what does Joey's rig look like? Like what is his
Where
desk
do you
setup?
even?
What is my
get
setup?
that?
This desk, this webcam is not going. It's not going below right here. That's the cutoff. It's staying.
So maybe that's
Desk
kind of
is a
question number
mess.
one is how are all of you holding up under the current work from home conditions? Is the PowerShell team still got high morale and productivity and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
no, we could. And can we answer this question, Thomas, kind of as we introduce ourselves here, as we go
Absolutely. Look
Yeah,
at
I
that.
think that's a
Like
good
a
idea.
true PM. Like a true PM. He's coming. Okay, go for it, Joey. Why don't you start?
through. So my name's Joey. I am a PM on the PowerShell team. I've been with Microsoft for 6 years now. For those of you that haven't met me yet, I just work on engine stuff, open source language, and a lot of the behind the scenes in regards to PowerShell. And I've been holding up okay. I live alone. I have a house out here in Seattle, and I've been pretty much holed up for since first week of March. I was a little under the weather, started working from home then, and then it just kept going. So we're getting a lot of really cool stuff done. I mean, I've been really excited actually because some days it's a bummer to be at home, but at the same time we just keep shipping awesome stuff. So it's been really, we've felt really lucky to be at Microsoft, and I do feel really lucky to still be shipping a lot of really cool code and to be just cranking on everything at Microsoft. But I leave it to the rest of the team. We have a bunch of other awesome faces joining us today.
Thanks, Joey.
I can go next and introduce myself. So I'm Sydney. I'm also a PM on the PowerShell team. I've been at Microsoft and on the team for about 18 months now, and I work on a lot of the tools and things that happen just outside of PowerShell, things like our editing experience, our VS Code extension, our package management experience with PowerShell Get and the gallery, and then some of our new tooling experiment areas, things like secret management, our Jupyter Notebook kernel, and a few other things like that. In general, the quarantine has been going quite well for us, and I think our team as a whole, we're lucky to have some great leaders on our team who have made an effort to encourage us to still have our social time as a team, which has been really key. And I think the velocity of engineering really hasn't slowed down at all. From a personal perspective, I also live in Seattle, but I live with about 4 roommates and a gerbil. So we've been just having a ton of fun getting to spend a lot of time together. And we've been lucky to have really good weather in Seattle the past couple of months, which has been very appreciated.
Important question, Sydney. What's the gerbil's name?
So her name is Kintla, so Kintla. But a lot of my friends call her Kitty because it's easier to say.
That's what I was
Asking
going
the
to guess
important
the gerbil's
questions.
name was too.
Yes, important questions, right? That's what we're here for. Yeah.
I'm Steve Lee. I'm the engineering manager for PowerShell. I've also been on the PowerShell team about as long as Joey since we first had the idea of going open source and cross-platform. Prior to that, I was doing WMI and WinRM and stuff like that for a long time. I think as far as the team, like overall, I feel like we're still making a lot of good progress doing engineering work. I think one of the things like Sydney alluded to is that we do have like regularly scheduled virtual happy hours every week. And last week we tried to do like this online gaming session. So we played Jack in the Box, not Jack, what was it? You don't know Jack. With the team. That worked out pretty well. It's pretty fun. The only downside with that game is it's limited to, I think, 8 players at once, and the team's bigger than 8 people, so we had to kind of split off into different groups. But we may try some different games this Friday, see how that goes. But I think that helps with morale, because if you're just stuck in your home office by yourself, it's not quite the same. There's pros and cons, right? Because we have an open office, and you don't have the distractions there, but you also don't have like the ad hoc social interactions that a lot of people miss.
I can go next. I'm Danny. I'm the PM owner for Azure Cloud Shell, OpenSSH, and then a few other things in the management space. I primarily deal with a lot of like the PowerShell partners and in the more cloud-centric view. Oh, how am I doing in quarantine? Quarantine, good. I'm actually walking a lot more. No one's out in my apartment complex, so I can go and walk around. So I think I'm actually losing weight in quarantine, which is I consider a win.
Yeah, I'm gaining weight.
Yeah, I'm working on putting on the quarantine 15.
Oh, I like that.
I'm down 12 pounds in quarantine, so
I'll do a real quick intro just because it might be confusing. I'm Thomas. I do work at Microsoft, but I don't work on the PowerShell team. So my team is like most of the rest of you is just a consumer of PowerShell. So my interactions with PowerShell are very similar to all of yours, just as somebody who uses it, not as somebody who works on the team.
Corey, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Corey. I consume PowerShell. I do not work at Microsoft. I got gently encouraged to assist with running the conference today.
No, he's actually the big reason why this whole thing works. So Corey's doing a lot of the hosting, and it's his machine and GPU running all this stuff. So we have great love and thanks to Corey.
We'll give you access back to your bank accounts when this is all over.
Yeah. Your children are safe. Don't worry.
So should we look at some questions? I think we've got some good ones in there.
Hey, do you want me to introduce myself? No.
Oh yeah. Well,
fine, ahead. Thomas. Be that way.
No, go ahead.
Hey everyone, everybody pretty much knows, but I'm Adil Lagari. I'm a senior solutions architect with Chocolatey Software, and I'm the guy. I'm the hamster running in the wheel in the background. Yeah, generally. Okay, I'm done now, Thomas.
Okay, so we got a bunch of questions queued up. It looks like the first one with the most votes is from Anonymous. What's the latest on the credential provider?
I assume.
Yeah, so I'm
about management module. Not
everybody wants to talk. Okay.
Or is he talking about like? I think it's worth some clarification. Like, there's a cert provider. I'm not sure if that's probably not what they're talking about. They're probably talking about the secret management module.
Yeah, I was a little unsure about that too, because in my world, I would think of the credential provider as being part of PowerShell Get, which enables our credential persistence. That's an experience we're working on, but I'm guessing this refers to secret management.
Secret management, yeah.
Let's answer it like it is about secret management, because I'm curious about that too.
You want to take that, Sydney?
Sure, I can take that one. So we have had 2 preview releases so far of the secret management module, and our goals for those first 2 releases were really about providing the surface area for Vault extension owners to begin building out vaults. And so in that way, I would say that the first 2 releases were really successful for us. we saw a number of community extensions pop up, and the Azure Key Vault team also released an extension recently as part of az.keyvault 1.6.0. So their vault is also available there. But one of the major limitations of those releases was that we were at a point where we are Windows only and we were relying on Windows Credman. As we push towards our preview 3 release, our big feature was providing cross-platform support, which we believe is a really fundamental part of the value of the module. And as we hit some challenges there, along with some other customer reported challenges around remoting using the module and a few other things, we decided that it was an important moment to sort of reevaluate the underlying architecture of how we were using the local vault, and whether or not we really wanted to take a hard dependency on external vault providers like Windows Credman, like Keyring, or if we wanted to have a more consistent cross-platform experience. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board on that aspect and have spent the past month really digging in to make sure we get that question right. I think we're at a point where we have a really solid design that's going to enable a more consistent cross-platform experience. And it's undergoing some design reviews right now, but hopefully we can make sort of that plan more public once we pass some security reviews, and then you'll start to see more progress happening again with that module.
Let me just add one thing. Like, I think Sydney covered all the technical aspects. Like, one thing I think I want people to really recognize is that when we released the secret management module preview 1, it was very early, so it's feature incomplete, and that was by design because we want to really get some early feedback on the experience, so that we can make big changes much earlier than when we have after we've written a lot of code. And we did get a lot of really good feedback that basically provided us the opportunity to make some breaking changes because there were things we didn't anticipate and think about. So I think as we do more modules and more of this type of work, you're going to see more early previews of, again, like PowerShell Get V3, we had preview 1, and that's not complete at this point. But we also still want to get people to give us feedback so that if we need to make big design changes, I'd rather do it much earlier than trying to do it late when we've actually written a ton of code. So you're going to see this as an ongoing theme from us. So just expect that as we get early previews, it will be by design incomplete. This is a change from how Windows used to work, how Microsoft used to work. This is how we're doing it in open source, be more transparent. So don't be too upset if it doesn't work perfectly because it's not supposed to, but it really is for that early feedback.
Like almost like a DevOps thing.
Yeah, I know.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for that module personally too.
Same.
Shall we move on to the next one then?
Mm-hmm.
The CLI guy asks, this is just the next top voted question. Any plans to remove/replace existing WinUpdate COM API to make it a more pleasant experience to use in PowerShell? Biggest pain point is that it can't be used remotely.
I think you may have Freudian slipped there in saying remove instead of improve.
Yes.
Did I say
But
remove?
I think
you may
yeah.
have, yeah.
Well,
but in any case, you know, I think I can sort of blanket answer that no, we don't have any plans to do this, and actually, this is not something I've really heard from anyone in a very long time, if ever, to some extent. You know, people use the COM stuff pretty extensively, but you know, it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to use, and it's not necessarily the most performant. It's sort of a little bit ad hoc. I think the last time I dipped into that stuff was like doing some automation with an Excel spreadsheet that wasn't a CSV or something like that. So, but
Joey, just
Steve,
to pivot
No,
just for a
go ahead.
second with that is I think what Adam, the CLI guy, is trying to get at was specifically Windows Update, being able to trigger that remotely. I think that was by design, right? Am I correct?
The
Like
WinUpdate
that.
COM API, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I think that was
by
by
design at the time. That was yeah, like being able to use MSUs, for instance, remotely. Like those was not available. So it's no, I don't believe there's any plans there from the Windows Update team. I do know that, you know, a couple versions of server back, you know, the there was a couple new Windows Update commandlets that came out, I think, in the Windows Update Provider module that are a little bit better than what we had in the past. Although I think a bunch of folks use what's on the gallery, which is, I think there's a pretty good Windows Update module out there as well. So sorry about that.
So let me. So again, I think the key thing here is really that those APIs and those commands are owned by different teams, which we don't have direct influence over. But one trick, or like Windows Update is one area that has this remoting prompt. There are other APIs in Windows that actually don't support remoting, like Bits, for example. And one trick that you can use to work around this is to use Task Scheduler. It's not the best, but it works in a lot of these situations. And basically, if using Task Scheduler, it just starts another process that's not using a network token, so then they can actually call these APIs.
So I will put a plugin specifically for a module written by one of our community members, Mark Kellerman, called Invoke Command As, which actually functions in a similar way to trigger tasks. But yeah, Invoke Command As will do that remotely. So you can actually, that's what we were using at my previous job to actually trigger Windows updates as scheduled tasks remotely. Yeah. Works quite well as a module. You can just download it from the gallery.
There you go. That's what you want to see, community modules.
Yeah, if you got a problem, you can fix it. It's open source.
Yeah, there you go.
A lot of these problems, I mean, it is a point worth landing that a lot of these problems have been solved by community members, and we do a lot of times get asked to make potentially large, sweeping, even breaking changes that we really can't make in where we sit in the platform, and that are really places of stability that we have to maintain, where even if it's the right thing to do, if we started over from scratch, we can't go and make that decision. And so it's very common for us to push back against those things. But you should know that you're always empowered to go and pick up artifacts like this from the gallery and solve these problems. It just may take that extra step, but that's really the world we're trying to move towards, where you're sort of composing the solution to your problem using bits and pieces pulled in from the gallery.
So we got a good question here, Thomas, for you to read out.
For me?
Yeah, the next one in the list. Yeah.
Just the top one?
Mm-hmm.
Anonymous says, among all the questions, I want to say thank you to the team for your countless efforts. You do outstanding with the far too small team you have.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
That actually feeds in really nicely to Kevin Marquette's next question. What is the current mission statement or direction that's guiding improvement in PowerShell going forward? So thank you, and what's next?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this points to something. Sure, I think we probably could afford to be a little bit crisper and transparent on that front about what our current mission statement is. It's probably not a clear, concise answer from any one member of the team, which is why Steve kicked it over to me here. But I will say, we've had a very, very strong community focus for a long time. There's three pillars I talked about a lot in a lot of the presentations I do, which is the community aspect, really focusing on taking the community feedback first, working through contributions coming in, and really just trying to live and breathe community to make sure that we're building the right thing. And then this ubiquity of PowerShell, right? Putting it everywhere we possibly can put it. For a long time, I talked about agility, but I think that's actually fed. We've kind of accomplished that one to some extent. And there's another question here that this one feeds into very well, which was, how do you guys get so much done with so few team members? And I think the answer to that question is, to Steve and his team's credit, a lot of automation. We've reached a point where we're able to continue to innovate with really a lot less people, and that means that we're very rapidly sort of taking this feedback in, changing our mind on things, and changing decisions, and hopefully you see the outcome of that. Things like secrets management we were just talking about a minute ago. We put something like that out, ton of issues get filed, a bunch of people have really good conversations, and then we make a bunch of critical design changes that are hopefully going to make that thing a lot more useful for people in the future. But I wouldn't say that there's any central principle necessarily right now, other than just continuing to listen and sort of improve in this feedback loop of community feedback.
I saw in the chat on Twitch also good team members, except that's from Rob Holt, who's one of those team members.
Yeah, he's on talk about
like
himself.
a little biased. Is that
I
true,
don't know about
Steve?
that.
Like, are they actually good people working?
I think everyone on the team right now is actually doing some amazing work, and that includes Rob.
So checks in the mail, I guess.
Yeah. All
I
right,
would
Rob.
Does
choose
anybody
to
does
believe that
anybody
that's
feel
not
like there are
true.
any central tenets of the PowerShell team philosophy that I missed here, other than just being really engaged?
No, so I'll just maybe attach on to some of the things that you said, right? Like, I think early on when we did this whole project of going open source and cross-platform is really like, hey, we've really kind of already conquered the Windows space. How do we continue to build out the PowerShell community? And if we want to tackle Linux, then you really have to be open source. So those things are kind of tied to the hip. And then if we're going to support Linux, there's no reason not to support Mac, because we expect a lot of people to author on Mac and deploy on Linux or deploy on Windows. That's kind of how that whole thing started. And I think if you look at some of the other presentations I've given in the past or some of the blog posts, I kind of go through the timeline of 6.0, just getting open source, get it off of .NET Framework on the .NET Core. That was really the focus of that. And the 6.1 is really kind of, hey, let's do a lot of the work back in Windows to bring compatibility back up, get the Linux and Unix usage more natural, because obviously when PowerShell was first written, it's like, I'm going to be on NTFS, I'm going to be on Windows, I'm going to expect backslash and blah, 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 stuff like this. So we had to do a lot of work to make it seem like a more natural shell on non-Windows. So that was a lot of work done there. 6.2 was really more focused on the teams. Like, hey, like what Joey said, we got to do a lot more automation. We're not going to be able to be agile if we have to do a lot of manual work to get releases out. And in fact, if you saw our last preview release, we sim shipped with .NET 5, which was pretty amazing, because typically we're like weeks or months off from their release. And then I think going forward, if you look at the 7.1 roadmap that was published, it's really, hey, how do we now look back on the shell? How do we just become a really good shell so that we don't still hear from people, even internally at Microsoft, like they prefer CMD. Like, this blows my mind, because other than legacy reasons, there's no reason to use CMD. And then, like, how do we become a better language just for the cloud, for management? And that's why we're doing stuff like secret management module and stuff like that. So it does change over time depending on business needs, partner needs, community needs. But really, it's getting usage and getting ubiquity. So it's just out there.
Fantastic. Just looking at the list again, unless anybody else has something to add to that one. All right, seeing none. Anonymous asks, is the out-of-box enter PS session, brackets to Windows, support planned? Kerberos authenticated PS remoting would be the last thing I need to switch to Linux.
All right, I can.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is. Yeah, I can just. I think unless you have a magic good news thing to add here,
no, there's.
I
no
think
magic.
the reality is this is extremely difficult. It's not something that we've looked at a bunch of different ways to enable it without basically rewriting a ton of underlying code here. A lot of this code kind of rolls up to the old MI code or OMI or MMI. There's a bunch of these different MI implementations and APIs floating around, and we really don't have it in our budget to go and reinvent those wheels for Linux, especially across all the distributions that we would need to support, because it is all native code. However, we do support SSH-based remoting with Enter a new PS session, and the recommendation there is to get your PowerShells moved up to 6 and 7 on your server side, so that you can use an open SSH-based server, and that is really what we see as the future going forward. Enter PS session does work today in some cases on Linux with basic auth and NTLM, Steve.
Yes.
But I don't think that unfortunately we will be adding Kerberos support there anytime in the future.
So one correction. Technically, Kerberos can work, but both the Kerberos and NTLM authentication on Linux client side is handled by libraries that are not written by Microsoft. So I've not done it myself because I've never had a need to do it. You can install some other packages, and again, this is not going to work on all Linux distros. I think I've only seen it work on Ubuntu, whatever 1804, something like that, where you install the right libraries, and basically what Joey's mentioned is we depend on this other Microsoft project called MI, part of the OMI, which is like a port of WMI almost to Linux kind of thing. And that project is deprecated. Like there's no team really supporting that formally anymore. There's no development there. So that is where we got our WSMan client support. And because of that, we just can't do much more in this space. So our recommendation, like if you need to go from a Linux machine or Mac to a Windows, is if you're not allowed to install OpenSSH, which we own on Windows, then you may consider having a jump box where you just have one Windows machine that has SSH, and then from there you can do WinRM to the other Windows machines.
I do have to say it's pretty cool, the OpenSSH implementation for PowerShell remoting now. It's been really smooth and cool. So I do dig that direction that things are going.
Yeah, and I'll just say like future investments in remote management is going to be via SSH. So for example, things like GIA is something that we want to look at sometime in the future, not part of 7.1, to bring that back, because that is one of the missing gaps between WinRM and SSH.
Right on. Okay, the next most popular question is also from Anonymous. Man, Anonymous is just asking all the questions today. Show command output is currently a command string. I would like a hash table output object in order to splat. Is any love for show command in the pipeline?
So I'll be honest, show command only showed up because .NET Core 3.1 brought back WPF. So outside of porting that code to make sure that it works, there's no plans to enhance it. Now it is open source, so if somebody wants to submit a PR that would be non-breaking somehow to support that, then we could take the time to review that and get that in. But I have no plans myself to make any changes to classic outgrid view or show command or show help.
Corey, but be honest, did you submit that question? Corey, tell the truth.
I did not submit that question.
You have done a lot of open source work with the show command stuff.
Well, but that's all in VS Code that I've been.
I think this is for you, though. I think this is for you, Corey. I think Steve.
Yeah, that's what I heard was it's up for grabs, Corey.
Yeah, it's up for grabs, Corey.
I like
Not
that.
gonna
Let's
lie,
give.
I have thought about that.
I'll say this: if someone wants to open that issue, if it's not open, I can mark it as up for grabs and assign it to Corey.
The community works.
Yeah.
The system
Just a
works.
second, I'm gonna go change my GitHub username so you can't find me.
Right on. So what are the modules on the PowerShell gallery released by PowerShell team members that are not part of PowerShell but should be used? So I think that's like modules on the gallery that don't ship with the product.
So this points to a deficiency that we have, absolutely, which is that we should probably just have a list of those, Steve.
Probably.
We don't really have that. Yeah, we should probably publish a list of modules that our team owns. Like I'm thinking there's kind of a smattering here because it really is a lot of different stuff. Like I could just start rattling them off, but I don't think necessarily that that's the most productive thing to do here. I will say, and I'll put this link in the Twitch chat, our organization has a ton of modules in GitHub. And so for those of you that has not really explored this, there are a ton of modules here that our team owns. This is we own this GitHub organization all up. So if you look at this thing, you'll see things like Script Analyzer, the PowerShell Get, obviously. Plaster is a project that I think exists out in the gallery.
Platypus.
I think Platypus, thank you. Which is our help generation.
This isn't even including the
but-
VS Code stuff that a certain team member does that we won't talk about because he's probably somewhere else streaming right now.
I was gonna say, like, the one, like, to answer the question specifically that, like, made by the PowerShell team and should be used is probably PS Script Analyzer. Is the fastest way I've found to help folks ramp up their best practices, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, one of my responsibilities on the team I work on is to help upskill my team and get them writing better and better code. And so one of the tools that really helps with that is PS Script Analyzer. The integration into VS Code is awesome. You get the immediate feedback, and then being able to set up like custom PSD ones that include rules and settings and stuff that are optional that kind of help enforce the style that I'm asking my team to follow. There's so much you can do with PS Script Analyzer, and so the question's not for me, but I have an answer I'm passionate about, so I thought I'd share it.
I think that's great. And I think the other thing I would add is the modules repo, which is a repository under the PowerShell organization that has some of the newer modules that our team has been working on. I don't think it's nearly a complete list, but that's definitely one place to see modules that are more recently been developed by the team.
Totally. I threw a personal favorite that I have as well into the chat. This is Rob's work, the PS Unix util completers, which gives you all the bash tab completion from your native utilities on your box. There's a don't do that anymore, Rob. I'm seeing no Joey in the chat.
No,
it's not supported technically.
Did you give the old name? There's a new name. It's a Microsoft PowerShell. Completer, yeah.
Then we should delist that one.
No, we don't want to delist it because some CI system, which doesn't make sense in this case, might be dependent on that version. So
delist, as in not in a search.
Oh, I see. Don't remove it, but delist it. Got it.
Any other modules you guys want to shout out?
I'm trying to think if there's any that I know I'm forgetting some for sure.
Well, I'll just put out there in the modules repo that Sydney mentioned, I do have a text utility module that I've been working on that hasn't been published yet. But if you build it from that repo, you can play with it. I have too much stuff on my plate right now. I want to get back to that someday.
Right on. Justin asks, what is the recommended strategy around module assembly conflicts and maintaining 5.1 compatibility? It's going to become more relevant, I guess. He accidentally a word.
Difficult,
it's going to become more relevant with things like Newtonsoft.json.
So maybe I'll cover this first, and I don't know if Joe, you want to chime in. So I think that there's a couple of things here. With 7.0, we do have an ability, if you're working with like native dependencies, which is not the case with Newtonsoft, to actually load that per platform. So that was something that was added in 7.0. That doesn't help with the 5.1. But with 5.1, you can do conditional logic in your module manifest to load things, or you can do it in the PSM1. Specifically around Newtonsoft and things like that, one of the things that we are exploring, is the best way to put it, is to do some sort of module isolation, so that, and we haven't quite figured out yet whether it's, is the isolation defined by the module author, by the user, or a combination, stuff like that. But basically, without going into too many technical details, using like a custom assembly load context, we can actually isolate dependencies so that we don't have this problem today where if PowerShell engine loads something like Newtonsoft and your module depends on a different version, then the first one wins, and the first one may not be compatible with the one that you need. So that's something that isn't going to be solved in the near term. It's something that we're well aware of. Today, if you know your module must use a different version than what we ship of a module that we do ship, or an assembly that we do ship, you can do your own custom assembly load context within your module and handle those dependencies yourself. Is not the easiest thing, but it's something that, for example, Rob did in the editor services space because it had the same problem. But again, I guess the only answer is it's something we're well aware of. We're looking at a solution. We don't have anything that's going to be available in the near term.
So I will shout out one thing that Rob mentioned, which was graphical tools. That's an interesting repo too. for if you
Oh,
actually are looking for that
yeah,
cross-platform stuff.
Forget about that. That reminds me, we do, along with graphical tools, we have the console GUI tools one, which I'm personally a fan of because it brings back the old Midnight Commander DOS-like experience, and that has the out console grid view, which we should probably rename to something else because it's not the best name.
Awesome.
Okay. Anonymous asks, how do you guys get so much done with so few team members? I'm just going to guess that this audience would say, or that this panel would say, it comes down to good PMs and good management. That's just a guess.
Well, I think that's true, but I also say I think that people on the team are really just passionate about what we do. I'm like, that's what I hear from members. So a lot of times work doesn't always feel like work. There's always going to be some aspect of work that feels like work. But I think we just have really smart people and really passionate people, and that drives results.
No, and a ton of credit to Steve and his team. I mean, they one of the things I see on his team that I don't see all across Microsoft, and there's not to say there aren't pockets of this in places, but it's really kind of astounding how consistent it is within his team. But everyone really does have a passion for automation specifically, and you see people who want to make improvements and take extra time to make improvements into our own infrastructure, right? So there, you just don't usually have this situation where an engineering manager or a PM doesn't, say to an engineer, we really need to like improve our test automation and make our processes less manual. They just go, I saw somewhere where I could automate a little piece, and then I just went and automated it. And so, we have these team meetings for Steve's team where we just get to sit and watch all this awesome stuff that his team has done in order to make themselves more productive in triaging your pull requests and submitting our own and that sort of thing. So and of course our PM team is also awesome, and I have tons of love for Sydney, Danny, and Jason, who are all just out there in the trenches, and I think that's another huge part of it, is just sifting through the sheer volume to make sure that we're picking out the most important stuff, so that when we're not doing things, it's not the stuff that you all wanted us to do, and that you're sad it's not happening. So very careful balance of all those things. But yes,
Joey
for
Dad's
those
not too
that don't
bad
know, we do not have hundreds of engineers. I think Steve, your team has 11 engineers, yourself included.
Yeah, and that includes
like the Win32
gallery.
OpenSSH. Yeah, hosting the gallery, all those modules that we just listed, and the PowerShell engine and language. So it's a lot of stuff.
That's one of my favorite things when people are ever complaining. Not that I hear it a lot, but if anyone ever complains, like, "Oh, I've been waiting on this new version of whatever forever," and then you go, "How big do you think the PowerShell team is? Like, just engineers working on PowerShell?" And invariably, the answer comes back is like, "Oh, it's got to be like at least 30 people or 50 people." Or,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Microsoft's huge. How could there not be at least 100 people working on this? And it's like, yeah. Okay, so let's have a chat.
Yeah.
Well, this is also why we rely so heavily on our coalition of internal folks like you, Thomas, right? So we also, we have strong internal communities. And so a lot of, getting more stuff done in PowerShell is convincing other teams that integrate with us to do a lot of that work, and to really, help us carry the torch and evangelize across the company. So, there's a lot of folks like Thomas that we have to thank for, kind of promoting us within that Microsoft community as well.
So we are down to our last 2.5 minutes. There are more good questions that are, I don't think we're going to have time to go through very many more of them, but maybe quickly we can do the last one here. Installing updates for versions, PowerShell version 7 on Windows. Is there any chance of those ever coming through Windows Update? Probably a good one to go out on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. Very quickly, I think the answer is yes. That's something we're looking into. I don't have concrete answers yet for exactly what's going to get lit up, but we've investigated, publishing on the download catalog, enabling Microsoft Update support, which is, that little box you check for allow updates for, other Microsoft products through Windows Update. as well as Microsoft Store support we're looking into. So, we hope we have something to share in that space pretty soon here. But it's one where we're integrating with a lot of the non-open source aspects of Microsoft that sometimes, are maybe not quite moving at the same clip that a lot of our open source efforts are moving at. So, we hope to have more shares soon there, but definitely recognize that that's a killer scenario, and having support as well through SCCM and WSUS is something we're looking to. Definitely. But
Let me just add something real quick. Like,
go ahead.
I think one of the main pain points that we do recognize, and I think this is called out in my the 7.1 investment blog, is really how do we make it easier to get PowerShell 7 and newer versions onto Windows, right? Because we have this problem today where we can't ship it inbox, and without going to, again, reiterating that whole thing, it's just simply a support problem. And we are working with some Windows partners where they may ship PowerShell 7 in their products, but it's not going to be in the near term inbox in the Windows 10 that you install. I mean, that's something that we're working towards, but it's just that it's not a technical problem. It's a support problem, basically. But Windows Update, or more specifically Microsoft Update, is something that we are looking at.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, I will throw it in the Twitch chat here. We do host a monthly community call, and it's actually a very similar format here. So I think it's right, PS community call. Yep. So we have it the third Thursday of every month. Very similar format. We give some brief updates about things that are going on our side of the world, and then we just take Q&A for the second half. So there's a chat, and you can ask your questions live and just talk to all of our smiling faces. So definitely check that out if you haven't already.
I will say that's one of the coolest things there is the amount of community engagement just in general with the PowerShell team. You guys coming out here to this event, but like so many things that you all read it to all of us with, and work with us on like even user group events and stuff like that. So thanks so much for all that hard work and engagement with the community. And I guess that's why we have such a great PowerShell community, right?
Well, and thank you so much for having us. This is, I mean, the fact that you guys were able to throw this together on such short notice, and we awesome engaging Q&A, and the chat's just flying. So we're always feel so lucky to have such an awesome community that's here to support and engage with us.
Yeah, I know one of the things that the quote unquote general public really appreciates about events like PowerShell Summit is the chance to interact and interface with the PowerShell team. And obviously Summit's not happening this year. So you guys do such a great job of being accessible, but scenarios where we can get so many of you online at once and kind of focus your attention for 45 minutes are rare. So we really appreciate you guys coming on, and all the work that you do, and your willingness to subject yourself to the criticisms and encouragement of the community.
Yeah.
And the memes.
Definitely.
And the memes.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the sad Joey meme, but we're out of time. So.
I was disappointed. Yeah, we didn't. We'll get some in the chat. Some.
You were sad, were you?
Yeah.
I'm sad that it's not an emote on the Bridge Conf.
We're working on it. We're working.
This
on
is
it.
our
Don't
first
worry.
time ever streaming on the channel, so I think
give me time.
I know. I'm just kidding.
We're not an affiliate yet. Although
there it is. It's in there.
Oh, hold on.
We're completely out of time, but for the record, Joey, does the sad Joey emote bother you at all, or are you okay with it being a meme? Just for the record.
You guys, the meme is owned by the community, and feel free to use it however you like. I'm very here. Well, just as a parting, one second here. Just
I did get blanket permission from Joey, by the way.
Crack it out.
I have asked him for blanket permission for sad Joey, and he was okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. Right.
Fantastic.
Represent.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, we're totally out of time, and we'll need to give Corey a chance to transition everything to the next call. So I'll thank you guys again for participating.
Thanks so much, everyone.
And can't wait to see what's coming next from everyone here.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.